I'm not being mean. I had all these criteria I had to meet in order for him to be attracted to me. Can we just say then that it's over? If I have to meet all these criteria in order for him to be attracted to me, I just can't be myself. I just can't be myself. He's just not attracted to me. I mean, I could probably count to my hand how many times he told me I was actually beautiful. And I don't think that has anything to do with my sister wives.
Hey friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, May 3rd, 2024. Listen, I've been going back in the archives. This video is nothing brand new, but I thought it was a really good reminder given everything that's happened and transpired with the Brown family in the last several months. Obviously, we haven't talked a whole lot lately about the sudden passing of Garrison Brown. The situation has definitely been heavy on my mind as I've been going back through these archives, watching and reanalyzing things. And I think part of my desire to look back and try to answer questions and fill in holes is because I simply am struggling to understand what happened. Even though we saw a lot of what took place on the show and we saw how they were treated, I just keep wanting to find like that moment or that clue and what it was that caused this whole family to unravel and this tragedy to occur. Obviously, hindsight is 20/20 and we'll never know. And obviously, because he had been dealing with so many other issues outside of just the familial issues, whether, he was in the military as a part of the National Guard, he was dealing with school, he was apparently battling alcohol. There were so many other factors at play, but it's hard not to go, okay, but the whole family dynamic was very toxic and created a very unhealthy environment for him. And there's been a lot of people, like this is to blame, that's to blame. And there's no one thing and no one person that's to blame. But something that has sat heavy on my heart is this idea that has been perpetuated by Robin Brown that Cody's boys were unsafe and that because of whatever was going on between Cody and the boys, they could not be around them, her kids couldn't be around them, basically labeling them as dangerous. And there's a lot that has gone on in this family that we'll never know about. And there's a lot of likely abuse that's happened that they've never talked about. And certainly on a show like Sister Wives, where they're trying to promote polygamy, they're definitely not going to bring up if, any sort of physical altercations had taken place. They're most certainly not going to show that on a show because they're trying to show the good side of polygamy, right? And they're not going to address the bad parts. So we really don't know the full story. I can only glean what we're seeing on the show. And the whole time, I've always felt like it's been a smokescreen. Like, let's blame the boys for Cody being unsafe when Cody's really the one that's unsafe. And season 17 was sort of this like turning point, at least for me, and I think for a lot of viewers, of we're finally getting to see the real Cody Brown. I saw glimpses of him throughout all of the seasons, and to be frank, I was never like a fan of the show. I stopped watching it for a very long time because he was so misogynistic and so egotistical and very demeaning and degrading of the women. And it goes back to the beginning. I mean, anyone that wants to say Cody's changed is just not the case. He's always been cruel to these women. It was season 17. It was the very first episode. And there was this moment when Christine was about to leave and the conversation was nearly over. And Cody ends up losing his mind about Christine possibly moving on and taking her children to another state and a man taking his property and the state coming after him. Cody is a very paranoid individual because polygamy is illegal. It is illegal in all 50 states. It's a federal crime. It's actually a felony in the state of Arizona. They always spend all this time talking about how it's decriminalized in Utah, yet they live in a state where it's a felony. And he was treating Christine almost like a piece of property. And then I rewatched another episode, The Knife and the Kidneys, and he honestly, in very many words, talks about her like she's a piece of property. And Christine, in the very first episode, says that Cody is unsafe and how he's acting makes her proves to her why she needs to leave. And the underlying fear in her voice when she said this, and then coupling that with the later episodes, I'm realizing that for her to leave, it wasn't as easy as it looked on the show. And his reaction was an explosive one because he didn't want to let go of the investment. He didn't want to let go of his property. He believed he owned her. And even at the end of their conversation when they broke up, believed he still owned her. So I want to just kind of run through the clip of how he acted, and then when Christine said he was unsafe, and show you the other clip to just sort of show you that Christine has been trying to tell us since 2020 that Cody is a very unsafe human being. And if anyone in the family is causing harm to people on a global level, it is Cody Brown.
The most polygamy unfriendly state in the union. You get a boyfriend who wants some of our money, and between you, your boyfriend, and the state of Utah, I lose any access to Truly and all my money. A greedy boyfriend, a user, a greedy new husband, a user. Okay, I would like you to promise me that that will never happen.
It's not going to happen.
Promise?
Mm-hmm. I promise.
She's trying to leave him, and he and her are arguing about her moving to Utah, and he is so mad of the fact that she's going to make a decision without consulting him first because she didn't ask him permission to break up with him. She didn't ask him permission to move out. She didn't ask him permission to do anything, really. He believed in their relationship wholeheartedly that she needed to do and have his permission to do anything. From the very moment that they met, he treated her like a piece of property, and because she was property to him, he didn't value that she had needs or wants and didn't care about him because in his eyes, as far as I can tell, he believed that she should just sit down and shut up because he owned her. When she finally had the courage to leave him, throughout this, conversation that was all of the first episode of season 17, he's degrading her by calling her unattractive, claiming that he didn't know better, he didn't want to marry her, discussing that, he didn't enjoy being married to her, saying things like she always complained about things, saying that it wasn't his fault. He gets very hostile and he points his finger and his posture is very aggressive. And he's keeping his voice low, but you can tell he's very angry. And you can tell that she is very, at least in my opinion, based on how she normally acts, she doesn't look comfortable and at times looks scared. And in that moment, she lowered her voice almost to like a child and whispering. And I think in that moment, she was very aware of how dangerous he was because he specifically brings up that only a man that would like her would be a user. It certainly wouldn't be a man that actually has a good person, and that any man that gets involved with her is just going to try to take all of his money and take his children away from him with the potential of, maybe holding him accountable in the court system. What he's doing is he's monetizing her in that his assumption is that the next man is going to only want her for money the same way that he did. He's viewing her as capital. He's viewing Truly as capital. The only reason anyone would want to be with her is money. And the only reason he would want to do with him is because they're after money, which is kind of like he's telling on himself. And usually with a narcissist, everything that they accuse someone else of is usually an admission or it's like a confession. So really what he's saying here is, I viewed you as collateral, I viewed you as money, at least in my opinion. I viewed you as collateral, I viewed you as money, I viewed you as currency. That's you better promise me that you're not going to do this to me. Like it's his final like threat. She's obviously very uncomfortable, and it's putting her in a place where she feels like she needs to be calm and almost be childlike. And it obviously triggered something in her because then her response on the couch explains.
Yeah, and everything Cody is saying and how he's behaving is confirming my decision. I made the right decision. He's not safe for me. Sorry, that was really, he's not safe for me. I don't think there's no doubt in my mind that I've chosen correctly here.
She's clearly very uncomfortable, and she's doing a very nervous smile. And Christine has this way of trying to, and she's said this a lot, when she's having big feelings, when she feels scared, when she feels nervous, when she feels fear, when she feels, afraid or upset or angry, she has this propensity to laugh. And she says that she tries to really hide her emotions because those feelings make her feel uncomfortable. And going there isn't, it's very vulnerable. And she comes from a culture where women really do have to always put a smile on her face. And that's a moment for me when I'm watching her react to this, what I feel like she's saying, and I could be wrong, but when she says he is not safe for me, I think it's this realization that if this man doesn't value me as a human, if he doesn't value my humanity, if he doesn't see me as anything other than someone that's going to take all of his money and the only man I can have is someone that's going to do to me what he did, that he's not viewing me as a person. He's viewing me as a piece of property. And that's a very dangerous place for someone. And this is why it's very dangerous for women to leave polygamy, because men don't view women as anything other than property. And so when their property walks out the door, some of these guys can get very, very aggressive. They can get physical. I can't tell you how many women I've talked to that have left men in polygamy, and when they did leave, they were beaten, or, one of their final fights was getting beaten, thrown downstairs, punched and thrown into walls, and then after they leave, being stalked and harassed through the courts, going through lawsuits or custody cases just to make the woman's life hell as much as possible. And so I am very keenly aware that Christine, even though she hasn't said this on the show, has visibly seen these things happen. It is ignorant for any of us to assume that none of these women have not seen violence, specifically either in their own homes or had siblings go through it with their spouses or had friends that have gone through it, because it happens all over the culture. In fact, Cody's best friend's wife, Nicole, he was on the show, Kyle. She was beaten severely by Kyle before she left him. Chris, and you have to remember that they know who Kyle is. They know the kind of person that Cody hangs around with is Kyle. They know that the type of men that Cody associates with and looks up to are very violent people. Cody's own father was relatively a violent man. I mean, his nephew, Ben, has talked about how violent Wynn was, and even Cody and some of his brothers have talked about how abusive Wynn was. And then you have, Mary never discusses this, but Mary's father was horribly abusive. I heard a story a couple days ago about how he apparently threw one of his wives allegedly down the stairs, and then she left him. So there's a lot of fear for women to leave. All this to say is there's a lot of fear to leave. And so because these men don't value them as people, they're just property, they have no problem abusing. When you can't see someone's humanity, they're just an object. And it's easier to abuse an object than it is to abuse a person. And she's telling us he doesn't view me as anything other than that. And then in a later episode, he actually admits it. So I feel like this has me on the right track. Just check this out.
I guess maybe I'm mad because I feel like an investor who poured everything, that he had into something and then, it just didn't work. In our marriage, I was putting so much effort. I was holding her hand. I was kissing. Well, I wasn't in love. I was doing it as my duty as a husband.
He is saying that he feels like an investor that invested into something and then the investment blows up and he doesn't get his return on investment. He was viewing Christine as something, if he put money into something or if he put time into something, that it would return on investment. He's not looking at her as a human being. He's not valuing her as a human being. Had he actually valued her as a person, they wouldn't have been in this position. Because if he would have valued her as a person, he would never have forced her to marry him, nor would he would have married her. If he would have valued her as anything other than property and a means for him to get clout in this culture because of her status as the daughter of Rex Allred and the granddaughter of Rulon Allred, if he would have seen her as Christine Allred, as a wonderful, vivacious, caring, hilarious, creative, charismatic person, if he would have seen that, he wouldn't have had to invest. You don't invest in someone. You can invest in relationships, yes. To be clear, I feel like people are going to say you're stretching this. I just know how polygamy works. I know that when Cody says that he felt like he was marrying her and he felt pressured, Christine even says we don't have arranged marriages, but they kind of do. If a woman approaches a family and if the brethren say, yes, you need to marry this woman, he has to. And if he wants to get to the next level, and if he understands the value of who Christine is in the culture and believes that she's going to get him to this higher level within the group, he's looking at it as, you're going to help me get to what I want, which is I want to be on the priesthood council, or I want to be the next prophet, or I want to be the one who runs this group. Whatever it was that Cody wanted, he wanted her because she was a blue blood polygamist. That's what he wanted. He didn't look at her as anything beyond her bloodline.
I was also attracted to your pedigree. That she's a blue blood polygamist. Her family lines in polygamy go really, really deep.
He married me for the money.
Yeah.
He married me for the title.
I mean, he treated her like, I'm picking out a cow to go breed so I can find the best cow to breed with someone else so that I can get the calves that I want. And he wanted blue-blooded polygamy children, and that's what he got. And so when Christine was leaving him, he's not only seeing the investment of that blue blood walking out the door, but he's also seeing when the blue-blooded children walking out the door. Those kids are all descendants of Rulon Allred, and that's what he wants. He wants descendants of Rulon Allred because he believes those are the most prestigious. That's why he cares more about Robin's biological children, the older ones that she has from her first marriage. He cares more about them than the other kids because they're not blue-blooded polygamy children. He can easily discard Janelle's children because there's no attachment to the cult of any kind. They are not affiliated with the Allred family. They are not in the bloodline of Rulon. They are not blue-blooded polygamists. They are converts. Both Cody and Janelle are converts. Their kids have no quote-unquote worth as royalty. And it's in the AUB, there are the haves and the have-nots. And for the longest time, the Allreds were the haves. You want to be with the Allreds. It got you a prestigious point that you don't get in any other capacity. So it's easier for him to discard Janelle's kids because they're not blue-blooded. He lost his mind over Christine because of that. She's my in to this, what I want in this culture. I want that blue blood. I want to be next to Rulon Allred. I want to be Rulon Allred, really. I mean, I had one of Christine's cousins tell me that that's what Cody did. He married her because he thought he was going to become the prophet of the church, not because he loved her. And so when she left, he's watching that walk out the door, and that's why he goes crying to Rex Allred, her dad, and says, she's leaving me. He's not sad that she's leaving him. He knows that Christine leaving him is going to stain him in the cult. He knows that. It doesn't look good at all to have her leave. And he knows that. He's aware of that. And the fact that she was the one that they touted as the blue blood and why they could advocate the way that they did was because of Christine, because of that bloodline. And he lost that. So it's not just losing Christine, it's losing what he believes is his value. She's not a human to him. She's property. And she's telling us that he's not safe because she's property. And men that have their property stolen or that leave will do a lot to make sure that they aren't happy in the next life or moving on. And he didn't make it easier for her to leave. He made it really hard, and we watched it in season 17. So when someone says they're unsafe, it's Cody who's unsafe. When Christine is telling us who Cody is, believe her. When they don't say things, but they're telling us he's not safe, but they don't tell us why, understand the origins of where they're coming from. That's what I can do. So I want to know what your thoughts are, and maybe this will help you better understand who the unsafe people are. Some of you probably already know. but maybe it also gives you some insight into why Janelle and her kids were so easily discarded and why they felt so rejected, and why Cody has no problem maintaining a relationship with Christine's daughters and kids today, but he wants nothing to do with Janelle and her kids. He still wants to be connected to the blue blood. All right, you guys, what are your thoughts on this? Tell me in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click on the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye, guys.